Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and it looks like the Hall of Fame for the raid of Castle Nothria should be closing very soon, as we finally have some final numbers for the Alliance. And it looks like that's actually going to come into effect as of today for EU, and as of next week reset for the region of NA. So even more of a reason for Blizzard to push out patch 9.0.5 earlier to us. We know that there's a candidate build and a lot of us actually are expecting for it to come out next week. How sure are we of this? I can't be ever 100% certain, but it's happening very soon. And right now would be the perfect opportunity to jump on PTR to test out some of those changes. Whether you're someone who is serious at the game, like a Mythic Raider, adapting to meta changes and is looking for a better Covenant, Legendary, or even a class in order to advance your gameplay, or someone who's playing the game casually and you want to try out that Covenant that you never thought you could, but now that it's got buffed, now's the perfect opportunity to try. So first of all, how do you get PTR? A lot of you guys actually don't have it, and I've always had it in my BNet, but this is how you get it. You go to the Blizzard website, make sure you hit the top left Blizzard icon and go to My Account. Go into the account settings of your account, and on the left hand side you'll have a bunch of tabs. One of them is going to be Games and Subscription. Click on Games and Subscription, which will bring you up a window of all the games that you have. And at the very bottom there will be Create Public Test PTR Account if you do not have one yet. If you still don't get that option for you, or if you still don't have PTR by then, it is a good idea to open up a ticket. Most GMs are very helpful when it comes to PTR, as there's a lot of players that actually want to test PTR, but in most cases simply don't have the means. And PTR is definitely worth testing with some of the new stuff they've added on PTR to test. PTR has a handy button on the bottom left, if you guys were not aware, where you can actually copy your character to PTR. So if you already have a max level character available in Shadowlands, then you can copy them over on PTR for all of your changes and testing. I would recommend making multiple characters, especially if you're trying out multiple different covenants, and maybe even if you're trying out multiple different builds. I just think it's just, since you can just copy a whole new character, it allows me to keep a character just for one spec or just for another, if let's say I have a bunch of abilities and builds that I want to try. Once you're in the game, it is a good idea to head over to Ouroboros, because there'll be a couple new vendors there for you to test out. There's a good chance you haven't been able to play with these vendors before on PTR. That's because a lot of vendors from the alpha and the beta have been re-added to PTR for even more further and better testing. For example, there's a lot of legendary changes getting adjusted over on the PTR, so wouldn't you want to be able to make a, I don't know, a max level legendary to test out all these changes, but grinding Soul Ash and getting all the powers and all these items that are super expensive on live, it's just too much. Good thing they added, re-added Rune Tor, a torrent that lets you buy all the Soul Ash you need in order to make your legendaries at maximum 235 item level. So you're going to be able to make max level Legos, unlock all the legendary recipes if you need, whatever missives and items you need in order to craft these legendaries. So this guy was really handy back in the alpha and beta, and now if you need to test some Legos to try stuff out, you totally can with him. Next to him is the Servant of the Jailer, who will take you straight to the Rune Carver, so you no longer have to go through a bunch of different loading screens from Ouroboros into the Maw, from Maw into Torghast, from Torghast into that corner room, into Rune Carver. You can just kind of skip right to him and craft your Lego right then and there. So much easier to do. Just make sure you have enough Soul Ash bought from the Rune Tower in order to be able to craft all the legendaries you need. While you are in Ouroboros, a couple other NPCs have been re-added from the alpha and the beta. There's going to be one NPC that gives you your resource distributor. From this guy you can get followers for your covenants in order to test out missions, or anima in order to build up all the different aspects of your covenant, or even honor points if you want to test, make sure that works. But honor points should work there properly. None of the honor stuff and conquest really transfers over into PTR, so it's not like you can really just go buy a bunch of gladiator gear to 26 item level or anything like that. Next to him is the Professions Consumable, which has everything, called Flascator. Has literally every flask, every item for raiding and progression, and you can use this to test on trained dummies with Bloodlust and all those other items, or just run some dungeons if you have any groups available. Finally, even if your character doesn't have the greatest gear, which is not something you can really buy on the PTR, you can at least get some trinkets. These trinkets are going to be to their highest potential maximum item level in order for you to test stuff. So if you feel like you need a certain trinket for a specific build, utilize this NPC in order to get your trinkets and your setups finished there. The next thing I always do on my ults in PTR, since there's a lot of Covenant changes, I want to test out how all these different Covenant abilities play. I want to test out some of the Soulbinds, maybe the conduits if those got changed, but majority of the changes in PTR so far have been to the actual abilities. So in the Enclave, you have all the different NPCs for all the different covenants, so you can go and switch them at a whim, just walking up to them. He grants you the abilities, pick up a quest to head over to the Covenant Sanctum, and there you should be able to get your Soulbinds done, get your conduits done, and a couple train dummies for you to hit in order to truly test those abilities. However, on PTR, I did run into a bug. Some of my characters are unable to skip the Covenant starting questline. You know, when you first get your ability, and then usually whoever is the leader of the Covenant will send you to do 3 world quests and get your renown and all that stuff. So some of them seem to work, others don't. You might run into that kind of an issue if you are trying to test certain Soulbinds and all the different conduits. You will be pretty limited on Soulbinds. You will have access, if you can skip or do the first quest line, to your very first Soulbind of every Covenant, but not super far into it. Your Renown does not transfer over in PTR. Therefore, Soulbinds will be kind of limited. However, majority of the Soulbind changes are going to be happening in 9.1, not in 9.05. So at least you'll be able to test out some of the changes that have happened to a variety of different Covenant abilities. But if you do end up slogging through the short but kind of repetitive quest line of unlocking and really setting up your Covenant and your first Soulbind, you will be rewarded with the ability to play with some conduits, and those have also got some updates. Yet another NPC was added to every single Covenant, and they are spread out in different areas. Most of them will be found next to the Forge of Bonds, except for the Kyrian. That'll be found on the whole opposite side of the area. But you'll be able to play with max item level available PTR conduits, and especially new conduits that have gotten a couple upgrades. Now, the way that I test a lot of the Covenant abilities is personal testing, like hitting a train dummy and seeing what the numbers are looking like, comparing them from live, because you can actually have a PTR and live running at the same time, because that's technically 2 versions of the game. So I'll usually compare the damage differences and playstyles. How do these abilities feel? In terms of, do they feel they're responsive? Do they feel like the procs are happening often enough? Do I feel the damage is a lot higher? Do I like the playstyle of the extra side ability, not just the main class ability that you get from that Covenant? But also, there's a lot more to the testing that has to be done, not just by you playing yourself, but also the Sims, which probably helps out to join any of the class communities on Discord to look at some of the Sims that players are doing, and keeping up with some of the information with a variety of video guides, especially for those for 9.05 PTR. I will also leave you guys a full list of blue posts by Blizzard themselves of everything that happened to some of the Covenants. I'll have a link, but also have it on screen for you guys as well, if you want to test out any of the Covenant changes. Like, for example, I tested out the Hunter and I found out Killshot actually does a lot of damage and procs quite often. I can only imagine with way higher haste values, so you get more ticks of the Flayed Shot ability, I would imagine you would get more chances of those kill shots, which actually do quite a bit of damage. And being present during your non-execute damage is actually kind of interesting. I do wonder how this would synergize together with some of the other conduits and Soulbinds, like Nadia with the Dauntless Duelist, where you do 3% more damage to a singular target wherever you attack at the beginning. You could probably tear right through bosses on your Survival Hunter, and my Hunter is not even fully geared either, so I can only imagine how a geared Hunter would end up playing it out with that Covenant. But that's going to be my video on how to get into PTR and some of the things you definitely should test. 9.05 is probably going to be approaching sometime soon. It is impossible as of making this video right now to tell you exactly when it's going to be, but we are to probably expect an announcement from Blizzard sometime soon. Hopefully the sooner the better, because I'm a huge fan of some of the stuff they've done for 9.05. I feel like there's a lot of good work that came into the legendaries, class changes, but mostly the Covenant class abilities, which I think they've done quite a lot of work in order to try to make them a little bit more even. And I'm actually very, very excited to do some Covenant swaps on a variety of characters. Potentially Hunter, definitely Warrior, potentially Shaman, and potentially even Warlock. I'm still deciding what I'm going to be doing, but very, very happy with a lot of the changes coming out. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Hopefully you find this video useful in terms of getting you on PTR, and hopefully you guys have some fun testing. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see all of you in the next one.